Alright, welcome back to the channel. Game Week 2 is wrapped up, and what a roller coaster it's been. Some players went nuclear, some flopped harder than expected, and some names we barely had on our radars are suddenly on everyone's watch list. That's the beauty and the pain of early season FPL. The drafts we sweated over for weeks can feel obsolete after just 2 rounds. In today's video, we're going to break down the key performers from Game Week 2 and look ahead to Game Week 3. Who's the real deal, who's a one-week wonder, and who you need to avoid despite the hype. We'll talk about some obvious big names, some left field picks that could make or break your mini league, and a couple of traps you'll want to steer clear of. Now, as always, remember, it's early days. Game Week 2 isn't the time to throw around -4s like confetti. The managers who stay calm, spot trends early, and plan moves carefully are the ones who come out on top. So while we'll get excited about a few players here, we'll also keep our feet firmly on the ground. So grab a drink, settle in, and let's go through the Game Week 2 standouts and the players to keep on your radar for Game Week 3. Trust me, there are some interesting options that could shape your season if you get in early. Let's get into it. Alright, let's talk about the first 3 names lighting up some FPL discussions this week. Jurrien Timber, Ricardo Calafiori, and Victor Gyökeres. First off, Timber, and yes, he's basically turned into prime Sergio Ramos overnight, dropping 2 goals, an assist, and generally breaking the FPL matrix. But before we all start selling our cars to bring him in, let's keep our heads. He played just 63 minutes. For defenders, some might argue that's actually a plus because it locks in clean sheets, but personally, I prefer reliability. And those attacking returns? 2 goals from 0.81 expected goals and an assist off just 0.05 expected assists. That's lightning striking twice. Great for the highlight reel, but you can't bank on it. Then there's Calafiori. Back-to-back 13-pointers, and suddenly everyone's shouting his name. But again, 63 minutes. Arsenal's defense is stacked, and we've all played the Arteta rotation roulette before. You never quite know who's starting, and if your defender comes on for a cheeky 15 minutes after the clean sheet's gone, you'll wish you stayed away. And finally, Gyökeres. 2 goals on the board, 1 from open play and 1 from the spot, so fair play to him. But his underlying numbers, around 1.3 expected goals, tell you he overperformed a bit. Watching the game, I didn't think he was particularly electric, and Arsenal's upcoming fixtures, Liverpool, Forest, City, and Newcastle in the next 4. Brutal. That's enough to keep my wallet firmly closed for now. So, yes, they're flashy picks and will give you some serious FOMO when they do something. But at this stage of the season, I want reliability and fixtures, not players whose minutes could vanish or who just hit a hot streak. Don't let points chasing sink your team before we even get to Game Week 5. Next up, let's give a little spotlight to the lads from Burnley. Josh Cullen and Cullen and Anthony both managed a goal and an assist each this week, which, let's be honest, is about as rare as seeing Burnley top a highlight reel. Starting with Cullen, 1 goal, 1 assist. But here's the kicker. He did it with just 0.8 expected goals and 0.19 expected assists. That's basically nothing. In other words, he turned half chances into a full haul. It's impressive, sure, but those numbers scream overperformance. We're talking Timber levels of enjoy it while it lasts. Anthony, on the other hand, had a bit more meat to his stats, with 0.77 expected goals. That's not bad at all. So, credit where it's due. He was getting in good positions and took his chance. But here's the thing. This came in arguably Burnley's best fixture of the season. A 2-0 home win against newly promoted Sunderland. Are you really going to start stacking up Burnley players in your team for tougher fixtures ahead? I'm not. It's a nice moment for them, fair play, but my transfers are staying firmly away from the claret and blue for now. So, hats off to the Burnley boys. They had their day in the sun, but for FPL purposes, they're more like a nice cameo rather than a long-term commitment. All right, let's talk about the attackers that turned some heads this week, starting with Joao Pedro. Now, I'm not saying he's the second coming of prime Sergio Aguero, but he's starting to make a real case for himself. 2 assists and a goal in that West Ham demolition. He was everywhere. It's not just the returns, it's the way he's playing. He's finding pockets of space, linking up beautifully, and looks like the focal point of that attack. And look, when a player is both the creator and the finisher, that's where the points really pile up. Fulham at home next? It's one of those fixtures where you almost feel annoyed if you don't own him, and he holes. Now, Outtara Dango, the name's fun to say, and so is watching him. I touched on him last video, but this performance adds another layer. We love a midfielder playing out of position up front. That's FPL catnip right there. And the new bonus points for defensive contributions mean he's quietly mopping up extra points too. Think about it, a striker who gets clean sheet points, tackle bonuses, and the occasional attacking return. If you keep starting, he could become the value pick of the season. But, and it's a big but, it's still Brentford. They were efficient against Villa, but one win doesn't make them world beaters. Before you rip up your team to fit him in, give it another week or two to see if the pattern sticks. And then, Jack Grealish in royal blue. It's still weird, isn't it? 2 assists and 11 points for Everton, and suddenly people are whispering about the Villa version coming back. Let's just be clear though. Everton were lucky to walk away with that result. Brighton should have buried them. Grealish was lively, yes. Everything good Everton did went through him, but 0.7 XA doesn't exactly scream must buy. Still, he's clearly got the license to be the main man there, and we know what happens when Jack is the main man. Defenders panic, fouls rain in, and points can follow. He's not on my radar yet, but if Everton start looking half decent, he's gonna tempt a lot of managers. To wrap these 3 up, Joao Pedro is the standout. If you can get to him without breaking your squad, do it. Outtara could be a hidden gem if Brentford stay consistent. And Grealish, he's a wild card. It could go either way, but at least it's something different to talk about that isn't another Arsenal fullback scoring screamers. Now, let's move on to the team that decided to completely ruin everyone's accumulators this weekend, Tottenham Hotspur. Beating City 2-0 at the Etihad. I mean, unless you're secretly Mystic Meg, nobody saw that coming. And honestly, the performance deserved it. Disciplined at the back, clinical when it mattered. So naturally, we've got to talk Spurs assets. First up, Brennan Johnson. 2 goals in 2 games now, and you can't argue with that. The guy's finishing with confidence, his movement's sharp, and when he gets minutes, he's a proper threat. I know everyone's shouting about Kudus. Kudus this, Kudus that. And don't get me wrong, I like Kudus too. He's cheaper and probably has a higher ceiling long term. But Brennan's quietly putting together the sort of form that makes you sit up. If Thomas Frank trusts him with consistent minutes, he's going to become an awkward problem for those of us without him. Now Kudus. He didn't get on the score sheet this week, but that's not the full story. He was lively, sharp, and a big reason Tottenham looked so solid against arguably the best side in the league. Sometimes it's not about the points on paper, but what your eyes tell you. And my eyes said, this guy is going to tick along nicely. He's cheaper than Johnson, so there's a strong argument for value here, but you'll have to be patient. We might not see explosive hauls every week, but the ingredients are there. And then there's Richarlison. Look, he's never going to win awards for elegance, as half the time it looks like he's running with a backpack full of bricks. But here's the thing. He just has this knack for popping up in the right place at the right time. That instinct can't be taught. In a game where margins are thin, a scrappy goal counts the same as a worldie. So don't ignore him just because he looks awkward doing it. If Spurs start clicking, he could quietly become a points magnet. One quick defensive mention, Pedro Porro and Christian Romero. Don't sleep on those two. Porro's positioning is aggressive, almost winger-like, and if Spurs keep clean sheets in games like this, those attacking returns could flow. Romero's a bit more old school, but if they're keeping City out, that's worth noting. Overall, Spurs look like a team with confidence and momentum. I wouldn't go triple Spurs just yet. There's a little too much rotation risk and they're still finding their rhythm, but a single attacker or defender could be a smart play if you want to stay ahead of the curve. Brennan Johnson's the sexy pick, Kudus is the value, and Richarlison, he's chaos, but sometimes chaos wins FPL weeks. Alright team, that's the roundup for Game Week 2 and a bit of crystal ball gazing into Game Week 3. It's been a chaotic week, goals from unexpected places, big teams stumbling, and some players really starting to make a name for themselves. If nothing else, this season's already proving one thing: planning is great, but flexibility is king. And speaking of flexibility, let's talk about something a bit spicier: the free hit chip. Now, I know some people guard their chips like they're the crown jewels, saving them for that inevitable blank game week chaos later in the season, and usually that's smart. But this week might just be the exception that proves the rule. Plus, we got 2 of them this season. Here's why. If your squad is stacked with Liverpool assets, maybe a Chelsea player like Palmer who's now a doubt, and a few others that make you feel queasy looking at the fixtures, this could be a chance to go on the offensive. A free hit could let you jump on short-term punts, players like Joao Pedro, maybe a Spurs attacker, or even one of those informed defenders like Timber or Calafiori, if you dare, without permanently restructuring your team. It's a risk, don't get me wrong. Using a free hit this early is like spending all your Christmas money in July. It feels good at the time, but you might regret it later. But it's also about context. If you're staring down a week where your team could barely scrape together 9 or 10 starts, or you've got injury gouts and dodgy fixtures, sometimes being aggressive early can swing you 20, maybe even 30 points ahead of the pack. And that's a massive edge this early in the season. So my advice, take a hard look at your team. Be honest. Are you confident? Or are you just clinging to names you don't trust right now? If it's the latter, a free hit isn't madness. It's a calculated risk. Anyway, I'll leave that for you to stew on. If you found this helpful or even mildly entertaining, hit that like button. It tells me you want more of these deep dives. And if you're new here, subscribe so you don't miss the next video when we tear apart the Game Week 3 carnage. Drop a comment too. Who's your must-have for Game Week 3? Would you dare free hit this early, or are you keeping that card locked up? Thanks for watching, legends. Good luck with your teams. Play smart. And remember, sometimes the bold calls are the ones that pay off.